Through the thick blizzard, they mocked the poor man standing at the gates of the snow-covered mansion, a single father, worn coat, snow-soaked shoes, hired to care for the daughter of Frostwood's most powerful millionaire. They thought he'd leave like the 36 before him. They thought everyone had a price. But when the cold woman placed a $50,000 check on the table and told him to disappear, that man did something no one expected, and in the coldest winter of that year, a frozen heart began to thaw. The alarm never went off because Daniel Harper hadn't slept. 4:50 a.m. The numbers on his phone glowed in the dark bedroom of the small apartment. Outside, snow fell in thick sheets against the window, building drifts against the glass. The radiator clanked and hissed, fighting a losing battle against the January cold. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, a single lamp casting yellow light across a pile of bills. Rent, utilities, Emma's school fees, the medical debt that never seemed to shrink, no matter how many payments he made. His wife, Sarah's illness had drained everything: their savings, his retirement, the small emergency fund they'd built over 15 years of careful living. 3 years gone now. 3 years of being both mother and father to Emma. He heard her bedroom door creak open, small footsteps padding across the cold floor. Emma stood in the doorway, 9 years old, wearing the pajamas with the faded stars. She'd grown 2 inches since last winter, but those pajamas were the last gift from her mother. She refused to part with them. "Can't sleep either?" Daniel asked softly. Emma shook her head and climbed into his lap, something she was getting too big for, but he'd never tell her to stop. She fit perfectly against his chest, her head tucked under his chin. "Is it the snow?" she asked. "Always the snow," Daniel said. The phone rang at 5:15 a.m. Daniel almost didn't answer. Nothing good came from calls at that hour. But desperation makes you pick up. "Mr. Harper?" A woman's voice, professional, clipped. "This is Margaret Chen from North Star Staffing Agency. We have an urgent placement that matches your profile." Daniel had registered with them 3 weeks ago, when his hours at the hardware store got cut to part-time. "What kind of placement?" "Childcare. Private residence. The family is particular. They've gone through 36 caregivers in 18 months. 36. Daniel felt Emma's weight in his lap, her breathing steady and trusting. "Why so many?" Margaret paused. "The child isn't the problem, Mr. Harper. It's the mother." Northwind Estate sat 3 miles outside Frostwood proper, at the end of a private road that wound through frosted pine trees. Daniel's 15-year-old sedan struggled through the unplowed drifts, the heater barely functional, his breath fogging the windshield. The gates were wrought iron, 12 feet high, with security cameras mounted on stone pillars. Beyond them, the mansion rose like a fortress of ice-gray stone, sharp angles, windows that reflected nothing but white sky and falling snow. Daniel pressed the intercom button. Name, not a question, a command. "Daniel Harper." "I have an appointment." The gates swung open before he finished. The driveway curved through what must have been gardens in summer, now buried under 2 feet of snow. The house grew larger as he approached, 3 stories of cold perfection. No Christmas decorations, no wreaths, nothing to suggest warmth or welcome. A woman stood at the top of the stone steps. Victoria Hale. Daniel had looked her up last night. CEO of Hale Industries, inherited at 28 when her father died. Forbes estimated her worth at $340 million, known for hostile takeovers and ruthless efficiency. 41 years old. Widowed, 1 daughter. In person, she was exactly as the photos suggested, tall, angular, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Daniel's car. Her dark hair was pulled back severely. Her eyes were the color of winter steel. "You're late," she said as he climbed the steps. "I said 9 o'clock. It's 9:07. Daniel had left 40 minutes early. The snow had made it impossible to drive faster than 20 miles per hour. "The roads," he began. I don't accept excuses, Mr. Harper. If you can't manage punctuality in weather conditions that are entirely predictable for this region in January, how can I trust you with my daughter's schedule? Daniel looked at her. Really looked at the rigid posture. The jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. The way her hands gripped a leather portfolio like it was a shield. You're right, he said quietly. I should have left earlier. I apologize. Something flickered across her face, surprise. Maybe that he hadn't argued. It was gone in an instant. Come inside. The interior of Northwind Estate was as cold as the exterior. Marble floors, high ceilings, furniture that looked expensive and uncomfortable. Everything in shades of gray and white and black. It felt like walking into a mausoleum. Victoria led him to an office that overlooked the snow-covered grounds. She sat behind a massive desk. Daniel remained standing. She hadn't offered him a chair. Your background check cleared, Victoria said, flipping through papers in the portfolio. 6 years as an elementary school teacher before your wife became ill. Part-time work since then in various positions. 1 daughter, age 9. No criminal record. No debts except medical, those I understand. Daniel said nothing. Let her talk. My daughter Lily is 7. She requires structure, consistency. The previous caregivers failed to provide that. They thought a child needed fun or creativity or other meaningless indulgences. I need someone who will follow the schedule I've created. Precisely. Without deviation. Can you do that? Can I see the schedule? Daniel asked. Victoria slid a document across the desk. Daniel picked it up, scanned it. His stomach sank. 6 a.m. Wake up. 6:15. Breakfast menu attached. 7. French lesson. 8. Piano practice. 9. Mathematics. 10. Reading comprehension. It went on. Every hour blocked out. Every minute accounted for. No gaps, no breathing room. Where's recess? Daniel asked. Recess? Playtime. Time to just be a kid. Victoria's expression hardened. My daughter doesn't need playtime, Mr. Harper. She needs preparation for the world she'll inherit. That requires discipline and structure, not running around in the snow. Daniel looked out the window. The grounds stretched away, white and pristine and empty. Not a single footprint, not a single snow angel, not a single sign that a child lived here. Mrs. Hale, Miss Hale. I don't use my married name anymore. Miss Hale. Can I ask you something? Her eyes narrowed. What? When's the last time you built a snowman with your daughter? The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria's jaw worked. Her knuckles went white on the edge of the desk. That, she said, her voice dropping to something dangerous, is none of your concern. Your job is to follow the schedule. Nothing more. Nothing less. Can you do that? Or shall I contact the agency for candidate 37? Daniel thought about the bills on his kitchen table. The rent due in 12 days. Emma's shoes that were getting too small. The heat that barely worked. He thought about the look on Victoria Hale's face when he'd asked about building a snowman, not anger. Something deeper. Something that looked like pain. He thought about 36 people who'd walked away. I can do that, Daniel said. Good. You start tomorrow. 6 a.m. sharp. I expect you to review the schedule tonight and memorize it. Lily will meet you in the kitchen. I'll be watching to ensure compliance. I'd like to meet Lily first. Because, Daniel said slowly, before I agree to follow your schedule, I want to meet the person it's built around. For the first time, Victoria Hale looked uncertain. She's in the music room, Victoria said finally. Downstairs, 3rd door on the left. You have 5 minutes. The music room was vast and cold, despite the fire burning in the fireplace. A grand piano sat in the center, black and gleaming. The walls were lined with instruments, violins, cellos, a harp, all perfectly maintained, all untouched by dust. All, Daniel suspected, rarely played with joy. Lily sat at the piano bench. She was small for 7, with dark hair like her mother's but softer, curling at the ends. She wore a navy dress with a white collar, tights, polished shoes. Her hands rested in her lap. Her back was straight. She looked like a doll on a shelf. "Hi," Daniel said softly, staying near the door. "I'm Daniel." Lily didn't look up, didn't move, but her shoulders tensed just slightly, just enough to notice if you were watching. Daniel had taught first grade for 6 years. He knew the difference between a shy child and a scared one. He knew the difference between quiet and silent. Lily was silent, deliberately, carefully silent. He moved slowly into the room, keeping his footsteps loud so she could track where he was. He didn't approach the piano. Instead, he sat on the floor near the fireplace, in her peripheral vision, but not in her space. "I have a daughter," Daniel said. "Her name's Emma. She's 9, 2 years older than you." Lily's fingers twitched. The smallest movement. "Emma used to talk all the time," Daniel continued. "She'd tell me about everything, her friends, her teachers, the books she was reading, the dreams she had at night. Then her mom got sick, and Emma got real quiet. For almost a year, she barely said anything at all." Daniel watched the fire. Let the silence settle. "You know what I learned," he said. "Sometimes being quiet isn't about not having anything to say." Lily's head turned. Just an inch, just enough that he knew she'd heard him. Daniel stayed where he was, didn't push, didn't demand. "I'm going to be here starting tomorrow," he said. "Your mom has a schedule for us to follow. I'm going to try my best to follow it. But I want you to know something, Lily." Now she looked at him. Dark eyes, huge in her small face. Old eyes. Too old for 7. "I'm not going to leave," Daniel said. "I know a lot of people have left, but I'm not them. I'm going to show up every morning, and I'm going to be here. Even when it's hard, even when it's cold, even when the snow gets really deep." Lily stared at him. Then, so quietly he almost missed it, she spoke. They all say that. 3 words. But they carried the weight of 36 broken promises. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah, I bet they do. So I won't ask you to believe me yet. I'll just show you." Lily looked back down at her hands. After a long moment, she nodded. It was the smallest victory. But it was something. The first morning, Daniel arrived at 5:45 a.m., 15 minutes early. He'd left Emma with Mrs. Patterson next door, a widow who loved having someone to fuss over. Victoria was already in the kitchen, drinking coffee, reviewing documents. She looked up when he entered. "You're early." "I learned from my mistakes," Daniel said. The kitchen was the warmest room in the house. Industrial appliances, marble countertops, but there was a worn cookbook on the shelf and a coffee maker that looked actually used, signs of life. Buried under all that perfection, Lily appeared at 6 a.m., exactly as scheduled. She wore another dress, another pair of tights. Her hair was brushed to glossy perfection. She looked like she was going to a funeral. "Good morning, Lily," Daniel said. She nodded. Sat at the table, folded her hands. Victoria watched from the doorway. The schedule said, breakfast, 6:15 a.m. Greek yogurt, granola, blueberries. Portion size controlled. No substitutions. Daniel looked at the schedule. Looked at Lily, small and silent at the big table. Looked at the industrial kitchen with all its cold efficiency. He made a decision. "Lily," he said, "do you like dinosaurs?" She blinked, looked confused. That question wasn't on the schedule. I don't know," she whispered. "Want to find out?" Before Victoria could intervene, Daniel started pulling out ingredients. Flour, eggs, milk. He heated the griddle, mixed batter, found food coloring in the back of a cabinet. "What are you doing?" Victoria's voice was sharp. "Making breakfast," Daniel said calmly. He poured batter onto the griddle in the shape of a stegosaurus. The kitchen filled with the smell of pancakes cooking. He added green food coloring to the remaining batter, made a T-Rex, a Triceratops. Lily stood up slowly from her chair, moved closer, watching. Mr. Harper Victoria started. "I'm following the schedule," Daniel said. "It says breakfast at 6:15, doesn't specify what kind." He plated the dinosaur pancakes, added sliced strawberries for volcanoes, blueberries for rocks, set it in front of Lily. Her eyes went wide. "This isn't—" Victoria's voice was strained. "Nutritionally balanced?" "Sure it is. Protein from eggs and milk, carbs from flour, fruit for vitamins. Same nutrients as yogurt and granola, just arranged differently." Lily looked up at her mother, then at Daniel, then back at the plate. She picked up her fork, cut a piece of the stegosaurus, put it in her mouth, and smiled. It was small, barely there, but it was real. Victoria turned and left the kitchen. Her heels clicked sharply down the hall. Daniel sat across from Lily. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "what kind of animal should we make?" A penguin?" Lily whispered. "Because it's winter?" "Perfect," Daniel said. Outside, the snow kept falling. But inside the kitchen, something had shifted. It took 3 days. 3 days of Daniel carefully bending the schedule without breaking it. Piano practice became learning songs Lily actually wanted to play. French lessons included reading picture books in French instead of just conjugating verbs. Mathematics involved counting snowflakes and measuring angles of icicles from the window. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, Victoria called him into her office. She stood by the window, rigid, her back to him. The snow outside had intensified. Another storm rolling in, the meteorologist said. "The worst of the season. You're fired," she said flatly. Daniel had expected this, prepared for it. "Can I ask why?" "You know why." She turned. Her face was controlled, but her eyes were furious. "You've ignored every instruction I gave you. The schedule is there for a reason. Structure creates success. Discipline creates excellence. You're teaching my daughter that rules don't matter. I'm teaching her that life isn't a spreadsheet. Don't." Victoria's voice dropped to something dangerous. "Don't stand in my home and tell me how to raise my child. You've been here 3 days. I've been her mother for 7 years. You don't get to judge me. I'm not judging you, aren't you? With your dinosaur pancakes and your playtime and your meaningful looks? You think I don't see it? You think I don't know what you're thinking? That I'm cold, that I'm cruel, that I don't love my daughter. I think," Daniel said carefully, "that you love your daughter so much it terrifies you." Victoria went very still. "I think you're trying to build a fortress around her," Daniel continued. "Rules and schedules and perfection. Because if everything's controlled, nothing can hurt her. But Miss Hale, you're not protecting her. You're suffocating her. Get out." In the 3 days I've been here, Lily has smiled 4 times. 4 times. Do you know how many times she smiled before that? According to the previous nanny's notes, 0. Not once in 6 months. I said get out. Do you know what she told me yesterday, during reading time? She said she didn't know what her favorite color was. A 7-year-old child who doesn't know her favorite color because she's never been allowed to have preferences. Only schedules. Victoria's hand shot out, steadying herself against the desk. "You don't understand. Then help me understand. My daughter needs structure. Your daughter needs you," Daniel said. "Not your schedule, not your rules. You. The mother who's so scared of losing control that she's lost sight of what she's actually trying to protect." "Stop. I lost my wife 3 years ago," Daniel said. "Cancer. Aggressive. She went from diagnosis to gone in 11 months. And you know what I learned? That all the control in the world doesn't matter. All the planning. All the rules. Life happens anyway. But love gets you through it. Connection. Presence. That's what survives. Victoria's mask cracked. Just for a second, her face contorted with something raw and painful. You know nothing about what I've survived, she whispered. You're right, Daniel said. I don't. But I know what Lily's surviving right now. And it's not the cold. It's not the winter. It's loneliness. In a house full of everything money can buy, your daughter is lonely. And no amount of French lessons will fix that. The silence stretched. Outside, the storm intensified, wind throwing snow against the windows. Leave my house, Victoria said. Her voice shook. Take your sanctimonious speeches and your judgment and get out. Miss Hale. Daniel left. He found Lily in the music room, sitting at the piano. She wasn't playing, just sitting. I have to go, Daniel said quietly. She didn't look up. I'm sorry, Daniel said. I tried. They all try, Lily whispered. Then they leave. Your mom? Mom doesn't want me to be happy, Lily said, still not looking at him. She wants me to be perfect. Daniel crossed the room, knelt beside the piano bench. Lily, look at me. She did. Those old, old eyes. Your mom loves you, Daniel said. I know it doesn't feel like it. I know it's hard and cold and lonely. But she loves you so much she doesn't know what to do with it. Sometimes people who've been hurt really badly, they forget how to show love without being scared. Were you scared? When your wife died? Terrified. But you didn't get mean. Sometimes I did, Daniel said honestly. Sometimes I yelled at Emma for no reason. Sometimes I was so scared of losing her too that I held on too tight. But Emma was patient with me. She gave me time to remember how to be her dad, not just someone trying to keep her safe. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then, Daniel wanted to promise. Wanted to say, yes, absolutely. Nothing could keep him away. But he'd learned not to make promises he couldn't keep. I don't know, he said. But I'll try. Lily nodded, looked back at the piano, and started playing something soft and sad that Daniel didn't recognize. He left her there, the music following him through the cold halls, out into the storm. That night, Daniel sat in his apartment with Emma, watching the storm through the window. The power had gone out, not uncommon in Frostwood during heavy snow. They'd lit candles, wrapped in blankets. Did you get fired? Emma asked. Yeah, because you were being yourself? Daniel smiled slightly. Something like that. Then it was worth it, Emma said. She leaned against him, the way she used to when she was smaller. That's what Mom always said. Better to be yourself and fail than be someone else and succeed. Your mom was very smart. Will you find another job? I'll figure something out, Daniel said. I always do. The phone rang at 8:47 p.m. Unknown number. Mr. Harper? An older man's voice, rough with emotion. My name is Richard Hale. I'm Victoria's father. Daniel sat up straighter. Mr. Hale, please don't hang up. I need to tell you something. Something Victoria would never tell you herself. My daughter was 6 years old when her mother died. The words came fast, like they'd been held back too long. It was winter. Like this. Margaret, my wife, she had a heart condition we didn't know about. We were having breakfast. Victoria was showing her a drawing she'd made. And Margaret just collapsed. Right there at the table. Right in front of our daughter. Daniel's chest tightened. Victoria tried to wake her up, Richard continued. She shook her, called for her, begged her to wake up. I was in the shower. By the time I got downstairs, Margaret was gone, and Victoria was sitting on the floor beside her, completely silent. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just went silent. Outside, the wind howled. The candles flickered. She hasn't cried since that day, Richard said. 35 years, not once. She built her life around never feeling that helpless again. Control, order, perfection. If she controls everything, nothing can hurt her. If she plans for everything, She'll never be caught off guard again. But she can't control everything, Daniel said quietly. No, she can't. And when Lily's father died in a car accident 4 years ago, another loss she couldn't prevent, she got worse. More rigid, more desperate. The schedule, the rules, the endless lessons, they're not about making Lily perfect. They're about keeping Lily safe. Because in Victoria's mind, if Lily is perfect, nothing bad will ever happen to her. That's not how life works. I know. You know. But Victoria, Richard's voice broke. She's so scared, Mr. Harper, so terribly scared, and she's trapped my granddaughter in that fear with her. Why are you telling me this? Because in 3 days, you got Lily to smile. I haven't seen that child smile in over a year, and because Victoria called me tonight, and for the first time in decades, I heard something in her voice besides control. I heard doubt, uncertainty, pain. You got through to her. You made her feel something. She fired me because you scared her. You made her question everything she's built. That's not a bad thing, Mr. Harper. That's the first step toward healing. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. What do you want me to do? Don't give up, Richard said. Please. My daughter is drowning. My granddaughter is disappearing. And you're the first person in years who's seen them both clearly. Don't give up on them. Mr. Hale, I know I'm asking a lot. I know you have your own daughter to think about. But please, just don't give up yet. The line went dead. Daniel sat in the candlelight, Emma asleep against his shoulder, and thought about a 6-year-old girl shaking her mother's body, begging her to wake up, learning that love meant loss, and loss meant pain so terrible you never risked feeling again. He thought about Lily's whisper. They all leave. He thought about 36 people who'd walked away when things got hard. The storm raged outside. The apartment was cold. Tomorrow he'd need to find work, pay bills, keep his own life together. But tonight, he made a decision. He wasn't giving up. Daniel showed up at Northwind Estate at 6 a.m. The storm had passed in the night, leaving 3 feet of fresh snow. The roads were barely passable. His car got stuck twice on the private drive. He walked the last quarter-mile, his shoes soaking through, his breath coming in white clouds. The gates were closed. Daniel pressed the intercom. Silence. He pressed it again. Leave. Victoria's voice distorted through the speaker. I told you you're fired. I need to talk to you. There's nothing to discuss. 5 minutes, Daniel said. Then I'll go. I promise. Another long silence. Then the gates opened. Victoria waited in the entrance hall. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her hair was down for the first time, falling around her shoulders. No suit jacket, just a sweater and slacks. She looked smaller somehow. More human. You walked through the snow, she said. My car got stuck. That was foolish. Probably. They stood there, snow melting off Daniel's coat onto the marble floor. You're here to change my mind, Victoria said. To tell me I'm wrong. To convince me to keep you on. She blinked. No, I'm here to apologize, Daniel said. I overstepped. You're right, I don't know your life. I don't know what you've been through, and I had no right to judge your choices or question how you raise your daughter. Victoria's expression shifted, confused now, off balance. However, Daniel continued, I stand by what I said. Lily is lonely. The schedule is suffocating her, and you're losing her, bit by bit, to the fear that's eating you alive. I'm not finished. Daniel's voice was gentle, but firm. I can't make you change. I can't force you to do things differently. That's your choice, but I want you to know something before I go. What? In 3 days, your daughter smiled 4 times. She told me she might like penguins. She asked if blue-green counted as a real color, or if she had to pick just blue or just green. She played piano music she actually wanted to play, not just what was on the schedule. For 3 days, she was a child. Not a project, not a performance, just a kid. Victoria's throat worked. Her eyes were bright, but she didn't cry. Couldn't cry. Hadn't in 35 years. You think those 3 days matter? She whispered. I think they matter more than anything, Daniel said. Victoria walked to a side table, picked up an envelope, returned to Daniel, held it out. $50,000, she said. That's in here. A check. Made out to you. Daniel didn't take it. Consider it severance, Victoria said. Compensation for the inconvenience of being fired. Take it. Use it. Pay your medical bills. Fix your car. Get your daughter those new shoes she needs. How do you know Emma needs new shoes? I had you investigated. Thoroughly. I know you're 3 weeks from losing your apartment. I know you work 2 jobs and it's still not enough. I know you're drowning in debt from your wife's illness. $50,000 would change your life. What do I have to do for it? Daniel asked quietly. Leave. Don't come back. Don't contact Lily. Don't call the house. Just take the money and disappear. Let us go back to the way things were. Daniel looked at the envelope. $50,000. 3 months of breathing room. Maybe 6. Time to find stable work. Time to give Emma the Christmas he couldn't afford last year. All he had to do was walk away. No, Daniel said. Victoria's hand trembled. What? No. Daniel took the envelope from her hand and slowly, deliberately, tore it in half. The pieces fell to the floor, settling in the puddle of melted snow from his boots. You think everyone has a price, Daniel said. You think because you can buy anything, you can buy anyone. But I'm not for sale, Miss Hale. And neither is your daughter's happiness. Neither is her childhood. Neither is the chance for her to remember what love looks like. Victoria stared at the torn check. Her face had gone white. You just threw away. I know what I did. Why? The word broke. Why would you do that? You need that money. Your daughter needs that money. Because, Daniel said quietly, some things matter more than money. Some things you don't put a price on. Like keeping your word. Like showing up. Like proving to a scared little girl that not everyone leaves. Victoria's legs seemed to give out. She sank onto the marble steps, still staring at the torn check. Her hands shook. I don't understand you, she whispered. I don't understand what you want. I don't want anything. Daniel knelt down, picked up the pieces of the check, held them out to her. I just want to help. If you'll let me. Help with what? Remembering, Daniel said. Remembering what it feels like to be a mother instead of a general. Remembering what your daughter's laugh sounds like. Remembering that love doesn't have to mean loss, and control doesn't have to mean safety. Victoria took the torn pieces of the check. Her fingers brushed Daniel's. They were ice cold. I'm so tired, she said. And for the first time, she sounded it. Not powerful, not controlled, just exhausted. I'm so tired of being scared. I know, but I don't know how to stop. Daniel stood, offered his hand. After a moment, Victoria took it. Let him help her up. 1 step at a time, Daniel said, starting with breakfast. Victoria didn't fire him. She didn't rehire him either. She just followed him to the kitchen. It was 6:30 a.m. Lily would be down in 30 minutes. Daniel started making coffee. Real coffee. Not the precise pour-over Victoria usually prepared. He found bread, eggs, butter, started cooking. Victoria sat at the kitchen table, still holding the torn check. When Margaret died, she said suddenly, I was making her breakfast. It was Saturday. I'd gotten up early because I wanted to surprise her. I was standing at the stove, making pancakes, when I heard my daughter scream. Daniel kept cooking, let her talk. I dropped everything, ran to the dining room. My wife was on the floor. Victoria was shaking her, screaming, Mommy, wake up. Mommy, please wake up. I pushed Victoria aside, started CPR, called 911, did everything right, everything by the book. And it didn't matter. Margaret was already gone. The coffee maker beeped. Daniel poured 2 cups, set one in front of Victoria. She wrapped her hands around it but didn't drink. Victoria stopped talking after that day, she continued. Not completely. She'd answer questions, follow instructions, but the spark was gone. My bright, joyful little girl just disappeared. Became quiet, compliant, perfect. She learned that showing emotion was dangerous, Daniel said softly. I thought she was healing. I thought quiet meant she was coping. So I let her be quiet, let her build her walls, encouraged them, even. Because at least behind those walls she seemed safe. But she wasn't safe. She was trapped. I didn't see that. Not until it was too late. By the time she was grown, the walls were so high I couldn't reach her anymore. She was successful, powerful, controlled, everything I thought she needed to be. And lonely, Daniel said. Victoria's hands tightened on the coffee cup. When she had Lily, I thought I hoped maybe the baby would soften her. That becoming a mother would help her remember how to feel again. But then Lily's father died. Another sudden loss, another trauma. And instead of opening up, Victoria just built more walls. Around herself, around her daughter. You couldn't stop her. I didn't try hard enough. Victoria, the older Victoria, whispered. I let history repeat itself. I watched my granddaughter become the same quiet, controlled, perfect little ghost my daughter became. And I did nothing. Daniel turned off the stove, moved the eggs to plates. Richard called me last night. The younger Victoria's head snapped up. My father contacted you? He told me about your mother. Something dangerous flashed across Victoria's face. He had no right. He's worried about you, about Lily. He asked me not to give up. Of course he did. Victoria stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. He always thinks he can fix things, save people, make everything better with the right words or the right gesture. But some things can't be fixed, Mr. Harper. I'm not trying to fix you, Daniel said. Aren't you? With your meaningful looks and your psychological insights? You think you understand me because my father told you one story? You think knowing I watched my mother die makes you my therapist? I think, Daniel said carefully, that you're angry at yourself, not at me, not at your father. You're angry that you've built this entire life around control, and you're starting to realize it hasn't protected you from anything. It's just isolated you. Victoria's breath came faster. Her hands clenched into fists. Stop. You thought if you controlled every variable, nothing bad would happen. If you scheduled every minute of Lily's life, she'd be safe. Perfect. Invulnerable. But she's not invulnerable, Victoria. She's 7 years old, and she's dying inside that schedule the same way you died inside your silence. Stop. You're terrified that if you love her too much, if you let her be messy and imperfect and human, you'll lose her the way you lost your mother, the way you lost your husband. So you're keeping her at arm's length, pretending control equals love. Stop talking. But all you're really doing is losing her before she's even gone. Victoria's control shattered. She grabbed the coffee cup and threw it. Not at Daniel, at the wall. It exploded against the marble, coffee and ceramic shards everywhere. She grabbed her plate and threw that too. Then the salt shaker, then anything within reach. Daniel didn't move, just watched as she destroyed the perfect kitchen, item by item, her breathing ragged, her face twisted with 35 years of grief finally breaking free. When there was nothing left to throw, Victoria collapsed onto the floor amidst the wreckage. And for the first time since she was 6 years old, she cried, not quiet tears, not controlled weeping. She sobbed great, wrenching sounds that seemed torn from somewhere deep and damaged inside her. She folded in on herself, arms wrapped around her knees, rocking slightly. Daniel knelt beside her. Didn't touch. Just sat there in the broken kitchen while she fell apart. "I don't know how to do this," Victoria gasped between sobs. "I don't know how to be her mother. I don't know how to love without being terrified. Every time I look at her, all I see is how easily I could lose her. Every time she smiles, all I feel is dread, because what if something happens? What if I'm not careful enough? What if I let my guard down for 1 second and life happens anyway?" Daniel said quietly. "That's the thing about fear, Victoria. It doesn't matter how tight you hold on. Life happens anyway. People get sick, accidents occur, hearts stop. You can't schedule away tragedy. Then what's the point?" Victoria looked at him, her face wet with tears, her eyes desperate. "If I can't protect her, what's the point of anything? The point is love," Daniel said. "Real love. Not the kind that suffocates and controls, the kind that shows up, that listens, that lets people be messy and makes mistakes, and still says, 'I'm here. I'm not leaving.' What if I can't do that? What if I'm too broken? Then you learn. One day at a time. One breakfast at a time. One smile at a time." Victoria wiped her face with shaking hands, looked around at the destroyed kitchen. "I ruined everything." "No," Daniel said. "You broke down a wall. That's different." Footsteps on the stairs. They both looked up. Lily stood in the doorway, still in her pajamas, staring at the wreckage, at the broken dishes, at her mother on the floor, crying, "Mom?" Her voice was tiny. Scared. Victoria's first instinct was clear on her face: compose herself. Hide the tears. Return to control. Daniel watched her war with it. Then, slowly, she held out her arms. "Come here, baby." Lily hesitated. This wasn't in the schedule. This wasn't normal. "Please," Victoria whispered. Lily ran across the broken kitchen and threw herself into her mother's arms. Victoria held her tight, tighter than she'd held anything in decades. She buried her face in Lily's hair and cried harder. "I'm sorry," Victoria sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I've been so scared. So scared of losing you that I forgot how to love you." "It's okay, Mommy," Lily said, and it was the first time Daniel had heard her call Victoria that. "It's okay." Daniel stood quietly, moved toward the door to give them privacy. "Wait," Victoria said. He paused. "Don't go," she said. "Please. We." She looked down at Lily, then back at Daniel. "Help us. I don't know how to do this, but I want to learn. I want to try." Daniel looked at them, mother and daughter, sitting in broken ceramic and spilled coffee, holding each other like they were both drowning, and each other was the only lifeline. He thought about his apartment with the broken heater, the bills on the kitchen table, the secure job he'd just refused. He thought about Emma, who'd told him it was worth it to be yourself, even when you failed. He thought about 36 people who'd left. "Okay," Daniel said. "Let's try." 3 weeks later, Daniel arrived at Northwind Estate at 6:15 a.m. He wasn't late. He just wasn't 15 minutes early anymore. Because Victoria had told him, asked him not to stress so much about the time. The schedule still existed, but it had margins now. Gaps, breathing room. Piano practice was shorter. French lessons included watching French cartoons. Math happened in the kitchen while measuring ingredients for pancakes. Daniel found Victoria already in the kitchen. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans the first time he'd seen her in anything but business clothes. She was attempting to make scrambled eggs. "They're burning," Daniel said gently. "I know." Victoria prodded the pan with a spatula. "Why do they stick so much?" "Because you're cooking them too hot and stirring them too much. Lower the heat." Victoria adjusted the flame, stirred less frantically. The eggs stopped smoking. "Better," Daniel said. "I'm terrible at this." "You're learning." "That's different." Lily wandered in at 6:30, still in her pajamas. Her hair was messy. She was carrying a stuffed penguin that had mysteriously appeared 2 weeks ago. "Morning, sweetheart," Victoria said. "Morning, Mom." Lily climbed onto a chair. "Are you burning breakfast again?" "Not this time," Victoria said. "Probably." Lily giggled. It was a sound that came more often now. Still surprising. Still precious. They ate breakfast together at the kitchen table, eggs that were only slightly overcooked, toast with too much butter, orange juice in glasses that didn't match. It was messy and imperfect and warm. "Can we build a snow fort today?" Lily asked. Victoria glanced at Daniel. He could see her old instinct rising, the need to say no, to stick to the schedule, to maintain control. But then she took a breath. "Let it go." "Yes," Victoria said, "after your morning lessons. But we'll make them shorter." "Yay!" Lily bounced in her chair. "I don't know how to build a snow fort," Victoria admitted. "I'll teach you," Lily said. "Mr. Daniel showed me last week. You need good packing snow and a plan." "A plan I can do," Victoria said. They finished breakfast. Lily went to get dressed. Daniel helped Victoria clean up the kitchen, a task that would have horrified her 3 weeks ago. Getting her hands dirty, doing manual labor in her own home. "My father called yesterday," Victoria said, scrubbing a pan. "He asked if he could visit." "What did you say?" "I said yes." Victoria set down the pan, turned to face Daniel. "I haven't really talked to him in 5 years. Just surface conversations, business updates. I blamed him for not saving my mother, for not seeing what was happening, for everything, really. And now I realize I was blaming him for being human, for not being perfect, for not being able to control the uncontrollable." She paused. "I learned that from someone." Daniel smiled slightly. "I'm scheduling dinner with him next week," Victoria continued. "Scheduling. Look at me. Still making schedules. Old habits. Schedules aren't bad," Daniel said, "as long as they have room for life. Is that what we have now? Room for life?" "Getting there." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Then, I called the previous caregivers, all 36 of them. I apologized, explained what was going on. Several hung up on me. I deserved that, but a few listened. One even thanked me for calling. That took courage. No, it took breaking. Courage would have been changing before it got this bad. 7 years of Lily's life, controlling instead of loving. What if I can't get that back?" "You can't get it back," Daniel said, honestly. "But you can change what happens next. Starting today. Starting right now." Lily appeared in the doorway, dressed in snow pants and a thick coat. "I'm ready for fort building." Victoria looked at her daughter, really looked, maybe for the first time in years. At the excitement in her eyes, the messiness of her braids. The penguin tucked under her arm. "Give me 5 minutes to change," Victoria said. "I can't build a snow fort in Kashmir." Lily's face lit up. "You're really coming?" "I'm really coming." Victoria started toward the door, then paused. Looked back at Daniel. "Thank you for not leaving, for not taking the money, for staying." "You're welcome," Daniel said. After she left, Daniel stood alone in the warm kitchen. He thought about the bills that were still waiting at home, the apartment that was still cold, the uncertainty that was still there. But he thought about Lily's laughter, about Victoria learning to make eggs, about walls coming down and hearts thawing. Some things, he thought, were worth more than money. Some things you didn't put a price on. 6 weeks after Daniel first walked through the gates of Northwind Estate, winter was still holding Frostwood in its grip. The snow still fell. The cold still bit. The roads were still treacherous. But inside the mansion, something had fundamentally shifted. Daniel arrived to find the front door open, not wide open, but unlocked. A small sign of trust. He let himself in, hung his coat on the rack that now held multiple coats instead of just Victoria's perfectly arranged business attire. Music drifted from the kitchen. Not piano music, radio music. Something pop and cheerful and completely inappropriate for 6:30 a.m. He found them dancing, Victoria and Lily, in the middle of the kitchen, spinning and laughing. Victoria's hair was down. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. No makeup. Socks on the marble floor. Lily shrieked with laughter as Victoria lifted her and spun. The penguin sat on the counter, watching. "Mr. Daniel," Lily called when she saw him. "Mom's dancing. I see that," Daniel said, unable to hide his smile. "I'm terrible at it," Victoria said breathlessly, setting Lily down. "But apparently that's okay." "Apparently," Daniel agreed. They made breakfast together, all three of them now. Victoria was getting better at the eggs. Lily measured flour for pancakes. Daniel supervised and offered encouragement. "I have news," Victoria said as they sat down to eat. "I've restructured my management at Hale Industries, delegated more responsibility. I'm going to be working from home 3 days a week." Lily looked up, hope and disbelief warring on her face. "Really? Really? I want to be here more. With you. Learning to be your mother instead of your manager. What if you mess up?" Lily asked. "Then I'll mess up," Victoria said. "And we'll figure it out together. Is that okay?" Lily nodded. Then, quietly. Victoria's eyes went bright, but she didn't look away. "I'm trying to be more real." After breakfast, Daniel found Victoria in her office. She was reviewing documents, but her laptop was closed. She was working with paper and pen, the way people used to. "I have something for you," she said, pulling an envelope from her desk drawer. Daniel tensed. "Victoria, it's not money," she said quickly. "I mean, it is, but not the way you think." She held out the envelope. Daniel opened it cautiously. Inside was a contract. Employment, full-time, benefits, salary that was generous but not excessive, and a clause at the bottom that made his breath catch. Childcare services to be provided at Northwind Estate during working hours, with full accommodation for employee's daughter, Emma Harper. "You want Emma here?" Daniel said. "Lily needs friends," Victoria said. "And you shouldn't have to choose between being here for my daughter and being there for yours. So, I'm proposing we solve both problems at once. Bring Emma here. She and Lily can do lessons together. Play together. Be children together." Daniel stared at the contract. At the solution he'd never even thought to hope for. "Why?" he asked. "Because," Victoria said, "you taught me something important. You can't love someone from a distance. You can't protect them by isolating them. Connection is what keeps us human. Community is what keeps us whole. So I'm trying to build that, starting with this." Daniel looked up at her. This woman who'd been so cold, so controlled, so terrified, who was learning, slowly and imperfectly, to be warm. "I'll talk to Emma," he said. "But I think she'll love it." "Good." Victoria smiled tentatively, still learning how. "I hope so." That afternoon, the three of them went outside. The snow fort from 3 weeks ago had collapsed in a recent storm. They started rebuilding it bigger this time, stronger. Victoria's technique was terrible. She packed snow too loosely, laughed when the walls fell down, tried again. Lily taught her patiently, the way Daniel had taught her. They worked as the sun traveled across the white sky, as the afternoon light turned golden, then amber, then pale blue. When the fort was finished, lopsided but standing, they sat inside it, protected from the wind. "I'm cold," Lily said, snuggling against her mother. "Me too," Victoria said, wrapping her arms around her daughter. "But the good kind of cold. The kind that means you've been outside doing something real." "Can we have hot chocolate?" Lily asked. "We can have hot chocolate," Victoria agreed. The real kind. With marshmallows. I like the real kind better, Lily said. So do I, Victoria said. It turns out I like a lot of real things better. They sat there a moment longer, inside the snow fort, protected from nothing and everything at once. Daniel looked at them, at the mother learning to love without fear, at the daughter learning to hope again, and felt something settle in his chest. Not certainty, not permanence, just peace. The snow still fell. Winter still held frostwood in its grip. Life was still hard and uncertain, and full of things no one could control. But inside the walls they'd built, not to keep the world out, but to create space for warmth. Within there was laughter. There was connection. There was light. And sometimes, Daniel thought, that was enough. Sometimes, in the coldest winters, all you needed was someone who stayed. Someone who showed up, day after day, despite the cold and the fear and the uncertainty. Someone who proved that love wasn't about control. It was about presence. It was about showing up. It was about staying. Spring came late that year, but when it finally arrived, the grounds of Northwind Estate transformed. The snow melted. The gardens emerged. Green things grew. Emma Harper had been living at the estate for 2 months. She and Lily were inseparable, playing in the gardens, building new forts, mud this time instead of snow, filling the mansion with the noise of childhood. Victoria had learned to make scrambled eggs without burning them. She'd learned to braid hair. She'd learned that schedules could bend without breaking, that control wasn't the same as love, that being perfect mattered less than being present. She still had hard days. Days when the fear crept back. Days when she wanted to retreat behind her walls and her rules and her careful control. But Daniel was there. Lily was there. Emma was there. And they reminded her, gently and persistently, that she wasn't alone. That winter had passed. That spring always came, if you were patient enough to wait for it. Richard visited often, now every Sunday. He came for dinner. He and Victoria were learning to talk again, to rebuild what had been broken. It was slow, awkward, but it was real. On the first truly warm day of spring, Daniel found Victoria in the garden, planting flowers with Lily. "You know what I realized?" Victoria said, not looking up from the dirt. "I spent 35 years building walls to keep the cold out. But I forgot that walls don't just keep the cold out. They keep the warmth out too." "And now?" Daniel asked. Victoria looked at Lily, who was covered in mud and laughing. At Emma, who was showing her friend how to pack soil around the roots. At the gardens coming back to life. At the world that had seemed so terrifying and was now simply the world. "Now I'm learning to live without walls," Victoria said. "It's terrifying, but it's also worth it," Daniel suggested. Victoria smiled. A real smile. Full and unguarded and warm. "Yes," she said. "It's worth it." The snow had melted. Winter had passed. And in the space where fear had lived, something new was growing. Something green and alive and hopeful. Something that looked a lot like love.